A single silver coin, minted in the distant lands of the Abbasid Caliphate, holds within its metallic gleam the shattering truth about the Vikings. Not the marauding raiders of legend, but sophisticated merchants who forged an astonishing, interconnected global economy. Forget everything your school textbooks told you about isolated medieval worlds. Today, we journey beyond the familiar sagas of westward raids to unearth the colossal, almost unbelievable trade routes that linked the frozen shores of Scandinavia directly to the opulent heart of Baghdad itself. You will come to grasp how the Vikings were master entrepreneurs, navigating thousands of miles, not just with swords, but with an unparalleled strategic vision for commerce, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of the early medieval period. For generations, our popular imagination, fueled by dramatic sagas and archaeological finds from the British Isles, has cast the Vikings in a singular, fearsome role: the ruthless raider. We picture longships, swift and terrifying, descending upon unsuspecting monasteries, their crews intent on plunder and destruction. Think of Lindisfarne in the late 800th year, a brutal shock that echoed across Europe, forever stamping the Norsemen as pagan barbarians. Historians like P.H. Sawyer and even early chronicles, such as the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, heavily emphasize these violent encounters, painting a picture of a Europe under siege, a world in chaos, relentlessly hammered by these formidable warriors. This narrative, potent and memorable, defines the Viking Age for most of us. We see them as conquerors of England, settlers of Normandy, discoverers of Vinland, always westward, always with a hint of aggression. The very term Viking often conjures images of horned helmets, though that's a later artistic embellishment, and the thrill of battle. This simplified story has become so entrenched that it's hard to imagine anything else. We're taught to view the vast Islamic Caliphate, flourishing in its golden age with unparalleled advances in science, mathematics, and philosophy, as a separate, distant realm, connected perhaps by scholarly texts or rare diplomatic envoys, but certainly not by the very people terrorizing Europe's coastlines. But this conventional picture, so vivid and compelling, omits an entire colossal dimension of their activity. It misses the extraordinary network of commerce that defined their very existence for centuries, and it leaves a profound, glittering question unanswered. If their focus was solely on the West, on raiding, on settling new lands beyond the North Sea, then how do we explain the sheer, mind-boggling quantities of Islamic silver pouring into Scandinavia? It's a historical puzzle that demands a new lens. If you're finding this deep dive into the true Viking story as fascinating as I do, consider leaving a comment right now about what you thought the Vikings primarily did. And if you haven't already, subscribe to History Decoded. It genuinely helps signal to the platform that these hidden, transformative historical truths matter, and it allows us to keep digging deeper into the gaps between official history and the real evidence. Now, back to that shimmering question of silver, because once you start looking, the evidence is not just compelling, it is overwhelming. The conventional narrative simply cannot account for the thousands upon thousands of precious Islamic silver dirhams found in Viking hoards across Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. This isn't just about a few scattered coins. We are talking about an astonishing, almost incomprehensible volume of wealth. Imagine entire hoards unearthed in places like Gotland, Sweden, containing over 100,000 silver dirhams, all originating from the Abbasid Caliphate, some minted in places as far-flung as Samarkand and Tashkent. That's not random loot, that is a deliberate accumulation of a continent-spanning trade. These hoards, some of the largest ever discovered, don't just speak of wealth, they scream of an organized, long-term economic relationship, a sustained connection over centuries. Archaeological sites like Birka in Sweden and Hedeby in Denmark, once thriving Viking trading towns, are rich with these coins, alongside other exotic goods from the East: glass beads, silks, spices, and finely crafted metalwork, all pointing eastward. And then there are the chronicles. Arab geographers and travelers of the 9th and 10th centuries left behind detailed eyewitness accounts that corroborate this picture with incredible clarity. Take the writings of Ahmad ibn Fadlan, an envoy from the Abbasid Caliphate who traveled up the Volga River in the year 922. His vivid descriptions of meeting the Rus, the name he gives to the Norse traders, are absolutely electrifying. He documents their appearance, their customs, even their incredible, elaborate ship burials, practices eerily similar to what archaeologists have found in Scandinavia. He watched them trade. He observed them exchanging valuable furs, amber, and even slaves for the very silver dirhams we now unearth in Viking hoards. This wasn't a fleeting encounter, it was a foundational economic exchange. Other Arab chroniclers like Ibn Rusta and Al-Garani provide further details, sketching out complex riverine routes, the arduous portages where ships were dragged overland, the perilous journeys across vast plains and mighty rivers like the Volga and the Dnieper, all to reach the bustling markets of Itil, Bulgar, and eventually the ultimate prize, the colossal wealth of Baghdad. This wasn't merely opportunistic raiding. This was an immense, audacious, and incredibly sophisticated trade empire built on strategic navigation, long-distance logistics, and a profound understanding of supply and demand across vastly different cultures. Did you ever imagine that such a powerful, intricate economic bridge connected the cold north to the dazzling heart of the Islamic world? This wasn't just trade, this was globalization in its earliest, most ambitious form. The implications of this lost trade empire are profound, shattering many of our long-held assumptions about the medieval world. Firstly, it completely redefines our understanding of the Vikings. They were not merely destructive pirates, but highly adaptable, economically driven pragmatists. They were explorers, yes, but also entrepreneurs and cultural bridge builders. They learned the languages necessary for trade, navigated complex political landscapes, and established sophisticated merchant communities far from their homelands. Their longships, so often associated with warfare, were equally, if not more, important as vessels of commerce, capable of carrying vast amounts of goods across oceans and up rivers. We have rune stones carved by Norsemen, which speak of men who traveled east and died in Saracen lands, testaments to these immense journeys that were previously overlooked in favor of the westward narratives. The presence of Islamic silver wasn't just a sign of wealth, it was a currency, a means of exchange that integrated Scandinavia into a much larger, more dynamic world economy than previously imagined. Secondly, this revelation dramatically reshapes our view of the Islamic Golden Age. It highlights the immense economic pull and cultural influence of the Abbasid Caliphate, not just within its borders, but across entire continents. Baghdad, with its advanced markets and insatiable demand for high-value goods like furs and amber, served as a global economic powerhouse, driving the expansion of trade routes far beyond the Mediterranean. The Islamic world, far from being isolated, was the vibrant, magnetic center of a vast global network, interacting directly and significantly with cultures often considered peripheral. It reminds us that periods we label as dark ages in one part of the world were often times of extraordinary light and connection in others, driven by the ceaseless human desire for innovation, exploration, and exchange. The sheer volume of material evidence, the coins, the beads, the textiles, compels us to rewrite the script, to see a Viking age that was far more about complex commerce than simple plunder. You now carry a new lens through which to view 1,000 years of history. The image of the isolated, warring Viking or the distant, unconnected Islamic Caliphate dissolves into a much richer, more interconnected tapestry. The world, even in the early medieval period, was far more globalized, far more intertwined than any standard textbook ever dared to suggest. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of cultural exchange, economic drive, and the very nature of human ambition across vast distances. What was one thing about Vikings you thought you knew before today? If this profound historical connection changes how you understand the medieval world, consider liking the video to easily find this revelation again when you next encounter the story of the Vikings or the Caliphate. The Vikings were not merely isolated raiders. They were global entrepreneurs, architects of a forgotten trade empire that spanned continents. And this journey, from the frozen north to the golden cities of the Abbasids, is just one thread in the vast, intricate tapestry of a past far more connected than we ever dared to imagine. What other foundational beliefs about history might be completely wrong? Subscribe to History Decoded and join us as we continue to unearth the next astounding discovery that history books have left out.